Hey guys, Thomas the Silver Jr. here, aka Mustached. I'm here to review the movie Eternals. If you end up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. The second one will head you over to my Patreon page, and any donations will be greatly appreciated. With shilling out of the way, I will remind you at the end of this review of all said shilling. Let's get on with the movie Marvel's Eternals. So, this movie is a bit oddity of an oddity, as it sort of semi-takes place in the current Marvel era, as well as being a setup to what the Eternals are supposed to be, which already raises so many flags in the beginning of this that it's gonna be one doozy of a review. Let's get that out of the way now. So, of course, I think it's safe to say that I don't know anything about what the Eternals were supposed to be beforehand, but that's irrelevant. We're talking about what we see in the movie, and of course, comparing it to what we see in previous movies, because this is supposed to be, of course, a natural follow-up to things that happened prior, because they even mentioned said things prior. So, that should all be fair game. With all of that out of the way, the movie begins with a bit of a text crawl, talking about, and I sum it up as essentially Eternals were created to stop deviants, is essentially the short of it. There's some other stuff there, but I'm pretty sure it's not really that important. But we see several beings, as I'll refer to them as in the beginning, being connected via this magical golden stuff. And out of the magical beings, we see two of them being introduced, Icarus and Circe. And the second you hear the name Icarus, if you know anything about history, you'll probably already know what's going to happen to Icarus. You might have heard the phrase, he flew too close to the sun. I wish that phrase, almost didn't exist, because that kind of literally happens at some point of near the end of the film. I guess spoilers, as if anyone really cares for spoilers for Eternals, but, Anyway, we cut back to, I think the year was 5000 BC. And the movie just jumps into some action with creatures, aka deviants, are being attacked by some of our heroed Eternals. It's a little hard to keep track of, but, it's a little wonky even at the beginning. All to save these pretty simplistic people, to get stopped when they see the Eternals show up. But we cut to present day, and we currently are following Circe, as she's sort of our main character throughout the movie. And as she's currently teaching a class, an earthquake occurs, and this girl is almost nearly killed, but she uses her powers, which no one else seems to notice, and saves her. So, as she makes her way back, meeting up with a fellow Eternal named Sprite, she sees a creature, and her boyfriend currently thinks, as of right now, that she is some sort of wizard based off of the weird going-ons on her life when she's around him. I believe his name is something with a Dane? I think that's his name. I don't know. Anyway, point being, they use their powers to essentially stop him using some sort of duplication spell, which confuses the creature. And as this is happening, Icarus suddenly appears and flies in and beams the creature. However, the creature heals itself a bit, which kind of throws them off. But they managed to drive it away. Now, here's where things, again, as I mentioned, right at the upset of this, they mentioned Thanos in this movie. So, we have to address the obvious. So, they claim that the Eternals cannot interfere unless dealing with a deviant. This is what they say in the trailer, and it's in the movie as well. Now, for those of you who might not know, if you simply Google Thanos, you will learn that he is indeed a deviant, which makes you wonder if the writers gave a single fuck to do any bit of actual research, instead of just throwing this together and saying, well, that's another paycheck. I'm probably gonna go with the latter, considering all the rest of the movie, but we'll continue onward. Now, here's the thing where this gets even stupider. Let's assume that Thanos isn't a deviant. For all intents and purposes, let's say this is a whole new thing with, this movie set, and Thanos isn't a deviant. Let's just go with that. Okay, I know it's a hypothetical thing, but let's just see. Because it still doesn't make sense. Guess what? It still doesn't make sense even if he isn't a deviant. And here's why. Apparently, the bigger bad guy in this one, called Arshium or something along those lines, I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but whatever. Arshium, or I'll call him Ari for short. Ari is focused on getting the population to be bigger. So why the fuck wouldn't he stop Thanos if Thanos' plan was to cut the population in half? It doesn't make any sense. Either way, even if Thanos isn't a deviant, Ari's plan is to make the population super big. So again, when it's cut in half by Thanos, you would think, oh yeah, call it the Eternals. But nope, they fuck everything up. And I'm not even slightly surprised by this. I'm not, because most of Marvel's recent material has been shit. It has been. It's been consistently shit. In terms of being objectively good. Now, I'm not saying you can't enjoy that, but I'm saying if you're looking at flaws, this is a objective flaw. It doesn't work either way you put it. It's broken, just like The Last of Us 2. I love pulling that one out because I'm just waiting. I always like to wait on that one, just to see. And I want to throw it in early, just to see if anyone comments on that. But we're not here to talk about The Last of Us 2. We're here to talk about how broken Eternals is. So let's continue. So yes. Talking about Thanos in my notes. We then cut back to 575 Babylon era, where we meet Ajax, the current leader of the Eternals, and she meets with Ari, as I'll refer to the villain as, about her mission. So she already knows what's going on. Keep in mind. We then meet Phazius, or I don't know how to pronounce his name. The black guy. I'm sorry. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I'll call him or Phazius, or try to get as close as possible. Point is, his magic revolves, and his purpose seems to revolve around helping people with technology. So that's a pretty big deal, and, for his little storyline, they do something with it. So we'll get to that, and I do want to give credit where credit is due, because again, I'm trying to be as objective as possible, so when something is good, I want to point it out. Anyway, so Then we cut to Athena being the focus. Not Athena, by the way. They make that clear later on in the movie. Just Athena, which is okay. And she has a pretty weird thing going on with her throughout the entire movie, where she suddenly decides to attack her own group, and then has to be, brain snapped out of it. It didn't make sense, obviously, when I first saw it, and I tried to still wrap my brain around it about her losing her memories and being replaced by... I guess she's more focused, like, her whole thing is more focused on being more AI-oriented, which I say AI very much on purpose when I get to this point of the film. Again, it still does come across as a little bit confusing, but for the sake of it, I'll just leave it at that. And after the fact, with Cersei hanging with Icarus, they've been hanging around with each other for a bit at the beginning, as we saw. We see them hanging out in the flashbacks, and now they kiss. Which leads to the thing that I saw on Twitter. It's like, yeah, Marvel's gonna introduce sex. The whole bold new direction for Marvel, introducing sex to superheroes in Marvel. And I wish I was joking, but that's literally what I saw on Twitter, and I wish I could show you the thing on Twitter, but it's probably gone by now, unfortunately. Point being that some people try to make a big deal out of sex happening in Marvel, and it's like, yeah, I mean, sex has happened in movies before. You do understand that, right? Also, I hate to burst your bubble, but, Deadpool had a sex scene in it. So... oops. I fucking busted you people on Twitter. And I don't even like Deadpool as a movie, mind you. If you didn't catch my rant on Deadpool 1 and 2, feel free to check those out. But yeah, Deadpool has a sex scene in it. And guess what property that falls under? Marvel! Oops! You fucked up saying that this was Marvel's first sex scene. Damn! If only people weren't smart enough to look up your own history, Google stuff, maybe watch your own movies, if you're gonna write about a movie and be like, oh, ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. You know, first gay couple in a Disney movie. That's exactly what this reminds me of. Disney's first gay couple. Speaking of, we're gonna get to that later in this movie. Oh boy. So yes, with that out of the way, you dropped the ball, Eternals, and I'll make sure to add that in my tweet. So you know that I know that you done fucked up. Anyway, moving swiftly along and getting back into the meat and bones of this movie. We cut to 400 AD, because the years go in reverse when in AD, so that makes sense. That we're doing it that way. So they proceed to get wed. And we cut to present day, very briefly this time around, and they find Ajax's body. Their leader is dead. Oh no! So Cersei's concerned, so she's trying to call out to Ari, the main bad guy, not knowing that he is a bad guy quite yet. And doesn't get quite the answer she's expecting currently, so we got to move on to the year. I believe they put on screen, I'm not entirely sure, I think it was 1517, but a war is taking place. And this is where we see Athena go nuts for no reason for the first time in the movie. We also see Druid, that's his name, Druid, not a class, talk about how he could stop all of these people from having their war, but then they talk about how they're supposed to not interfere, even though at the beginning of the movie, they completely had him interfere, so what the fuck. So the movie's rules are inconsistent even within itself, so, have even more inconsistency. Your bowl of soup, please. I'll have another. But we cut to present day, as our Eternal group is still currently split among our three leads, or the ones we're currently following, and they want to bring in our rest of the crew. So they cut to Mumbai, I think it's pronounced, I'm not entirely sure. And they re-meet Kingo, who is currently doing a Bollywood thing about the Eternals. So his whole shtick is he's trying to make the Eternals, a thing that is known. So we see Sprite, the small one, talk to his co-worker that follows along with them. While we cut to Australia, here we meet Gilgamesh, and they tell him the news as well, as they have told Kingo about the news, about, how Ajax died and how they need his help. So Gilgamesh helps out Athena, that's where she currently is in the present day, with him. And then they proceed to, get this, mock the idea that Iron Man and Cap are gone and that who will lead the Avengers now? Well, fuck, you didn't have to make a joke about it, for fuck's sake. Iron Man, I don't know if the writers of this movie understand that Iron Man made this possible. Literally, he is the one that made all of this possible. And this is what happens. This is what happens when you sacrifice character for wokeness, or whatever you want to call it these days. And here's the thing. I'm an individual who wants well-written LGBT representation if it's going to be included in your story. I have a story, it includes LGBT characters, and I try to write them well. Here, instead of doing that, let's say fuck you to the past of what we've done before, and make room for what's coming up next. Because that has been Marvel's consistent issue ever since its fourth installment of movies, is just fuck the past. We just simply need to say what's happening next, which also happens in this movie, because fuck making the Eternals good. Just worry about what's coming next, guys. Consume a product. Don't worry yourself about how well done it's being presented to you by. We could just keep turning out shit, and you'll keep eating that said shit. Yum yum. Delicious. Fantastic. So let's move on. So, Eri apparently isn't the end-all be-all bad guy of this movie. That would belong to the name Tiamat, which I have no clue what that's referring to in terms of Marvel bad guys, but that is what is being referred to in this movie, so just go with it. And he's the super bad guy. By the way, this is where Cersei learns of Ari's plans to summon Tiamat to essentially eat the people of Earth and consume its essence and restore it elsewhere, because that is apparently what the whole thing is set up to be. And this is where I mentioned AI earlier. The Eternals were programmed to be the way that they are, which is another oddity of writing, considering they seem to all have human-esque aspects about them. Cersei, the main character, being the most quite visible of, she cares about the people, she's always being invested in what they're doing. Having that passion for humanity Seems to be quite the unforesight of the bad guy to, allow that to be the case, considering what they are going to do, or trying to do, which the name of said thing is called the Emergence. Okay, that's the name of it. Don't question it, just whatever. So, again, we cut to them sharing this information. We then cut to the Amazon, where we meet up with what Druid's been up to, which is controlling an entire town of people so that they are never, at war, but then they are never free to be them. So yeah, that's going on with him. Meanwhile, Athena has a little moment with Gilgamesh. And it's very short, very brief, moving on. So this is where Kingo talks to Sprite about being like Peter Pan. She's like all curious as to what he's referring to, and he essentially tells her that he's essentially like Tinkerbell, which, given what happens later in the movie, kind of confuses me still, but whatever. Point being, we have to be told what these characters are like instead of being shown what these characters are like, because beforehand, I probably would have not have pointed to say Tinkerbell necessarily, but the movie's gonna just tell me, oh, she's supposed to be like Tinkerbell, by the way. Because the movie has no interest in, again, displaying that in any meaningful way. Or getting that across visually, or have her say things that would be like, oh, that'd be something Tinkerbell would say if she talked, which I think she does in one iteration of Tinkerbell, I'm pretty sure, but whatever. Point being, that they get attacked in this location. Icarus is pulled away by a creature. Athena has her own battle while going after Icarus. Kingo has his own creature, which he takes on. Cersei turns one of them into a tree, not even fully realizing how she did that. Gilgamesh using his power fist powers, very briefly. So another battle sequence. But in the process of said battle, unfortunately, Gilgamesh dies. What was his character? He's the one on the far left. And he's a cook. And he was the one in charge of Athena. That's about the most I can tell you about his character. So yeah, there goes that character. And it's a shame, too, because I know that I've seen that I just fairly recent saw him in Train to Busan, and him in that movie, and he was really good. So it's a shame to see him used so utterly not well done and, poorly. So, it is what it is. So yeah, moving right along, Druid, being all conflicted, says now that the Deviants have evolved, because that's something that they were doing since Ajax, he says essentially that they and the Eternals are essentially the same thing now. Okay. Then we cut to 1945, I believe the year they put in. But it is the year of Hiroshima. This is where we see Phaeus, or however you say his name, Phaeus, be distraught by the display of Hiroshima, and he blames himself, even though, in normal history, that was obviously Americans taking revenge on Japan, after the whole war with them, or China, I forget which country it was, no, Japan, Hiroshima, stupid me. But after his little distraught nature, we cut to present day and see where he is currently, which is in Chicago. And this is where things get even more bizarre. If things weren't odd enough, I kid you not, he calls out Icarus, because he's there with the group. He calls Icarus Superman. Keep in mind that Superman is DC. What the fuck are these writers doing? How are they even allowed to mention Superman? What is happening? What is happening in this world? What is this writing that we're just able to call out things from other universes, essentially, or other properties? Is that just allowed now? I don't know. Oh, by the way, moving swiftly past that annoying nature, Thaddeus has a boyfriend. LGBT representation. What's his boyfriend like? Generic boyfriend there for LGBT representation. That is the extent of what I know about that guy. I kid you not. You know, I mentioned it before, but we have to have this discussion again now. I want, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who wants, if you're gonna have LGBT representation in your movie / story / video game, please, for the love of God, have it be well written. That's all I ask. It's not a hard ask, believe it or not, it's not. And yet, time and time and time again, consistently, primarily through Disney, because Disney owns Marvel now, has consistently fucked up LGBT representation. Because apparently it's good enough to just show it. One kiss, even if it's from background characters, is enough to satisfy people. And I simply ask, why? Why is that good enough? That's nothing. That's been nothing for so long. Why is that so much to so many people? I simply don't understand it. If you're looking for representation, then why not have it be well done? 'Cause, spoiler alert for a review that I'm planning, Hell of a Boss has gay characters. And guess what? They're well written. Fuck! Hell of a Boss! A show that has currently 7 episodes, and it's well written. More well written than anything from the 4th installment of Marvel. And it has well written gay characters. Magical. Almost magical, it seems. But again, it's not that hard to have that be the focus and have it be well written. It's not that hard. And you know how I know that this is just an installment of insert gay character here is that he's out of the rest of the movie. Like, literally, the only other time we see him is when they return back to saving the planet or whatever. That's the only time we see this character ever again, and it's just for the points. It's just to be like, hey, LGBT people who want LGBT rep, look, kissing again. We've done that a number of times, and we've done it so well. It's like, come on. Like, the most credit I can give Disney is the Owl House. And you know what they did with the Owl House? They canceled it. They canceled it before its prime. That, by the way, has a young bisexual and lesbian character as the lead characters in their story. This is a Disney thing, by the way. And again, it's canceled. That should tell you everything you need to know about Disney. Everything. You need to know about how they handle LGBT representation and why we shouldn't depend on Disney of all companies to give us well-written LGBT. We need to look elsewhere, Hell of a Boss. That's where we need to start looking. Because people who actually give a fuck, who actually want to do well-written characters, they're gonna come along. Even if it's through the means of just having a fan base and a dream and enough money and resources and a team. and the passion to make it a thing, then they're gonna do it eventually. And it has happened, and it does happen. And I can't wait for more of that material, because that is what we look forward to. That is what I look forward to. None of this bullshit. But hey, they pay visit to the one that does the sign language. I don't know the character's name. I wrote down Makari, but I'm not sure if that's her name or not. Not sure, 100%. But she's the super speedy one of the group, just to get that out of the way. And they require her, same way essentially how they got the others. So now that they're all together, the Fadius wants to use this thing called a Unimind, which they all combine their powers and become a singular source of power to essentially stop this whole Ari thing from going down. Now they're on the opposing side to Ari and his plans, now that they know the truth. However, we learn that 6 days ago, down in South Dakota, Ajax, when she was alive still, was talking with Icarus. And Ajax talks about how she wanted to stop this. And again, they bring up Thanos and how he delayed the emergence, which again, question mark. And then moving to Alaska, where Icarus shows his true colors and pushes Ajax down to where the creatures, the deviants, are. And this bizarre thing happens where one deviant sucks his tentacle hentai creature paws into several other deviants. However, later in the film, he is the only deviant present, which makes me wonder what the hell the whole point of that was. Because it seemed to be powering the other deviants up, not eating them, which I assume is actually what happened, since it's the only one at the end of the movie. But yeah, it's completely backwards. Again, like, what's happening in this movie? What the fuck is happening? Again! So Cersei confronts Icarus, and she, obviously wants it to stop, and Ajax is still, dedicated to the original plan. And, she wants to put Tiamat to sleep, as she puts it. So the group gears up as Icarus becomes the main villain, essentially, for the rest of the movie. From this point moving forward. And him and Druid fight, he loses, Druid does, and, we see the other two of them try to stop, or slow down Icarus at the most, but the main deviant attacks, and again, he comes he was just kind of near that area, so he's just attacking now. So Athena gets her little moment where she gets to one-on-one the creature, while Sprite stabs Cersei in the back while she's trying to deal with Icarus. But it turns out Druid is alive, so he knocks out Sprite for the time being. So our group is sort of torn between two sides. The deviant uses Gilgamesh's voice to hold in Athena, but Athena stops it, obviously. Tiamat begins to rise, and Icarus sees that Cersei's clearly trying to stop it, but just like The Last of Us 2, which is why I actually brought it up, he manages to have a flashback just in the right moment to be like, nah, I'm good. What does that remind me of? Oh, the end of The Last of Us 2. That's the other reason I actually brought it up. Talk about poetry and rhyming. I did that on purpose, you see. Even unscripted, you see. Quite a talent I have for doing certain things sometimes. But we're not done. Even as Cersei continues to do her thing and freeze Tiamat in place while Icarus fucks off. and quite literally flies into the sun, so, you know, that being ends up where what I thought it was going to end up. And after the fact, Sprite's like, hey, I want to be a good guy again. Also, I want to be human. So Cersei, I guess, is allowed to make that happen now, because her powers are enhanced still, I guess. But 2 weeks pass. And Purius, or however you say his name, brings the crew back to his place. The entire crew is at the gay place. And Cersei, after the fact, wants to hang out with her boyfriend, and her boyfriend has a secret. But guess what? Before said secret and said next movie can be revealed, she's pulled away by Arya to elsewhere, and that is the end of the Eternals. Holy fucking shit, what a shit show. Talk about inconsistency, poor writing, just confusing dialogue that doesn't eternalize what has been done before, shitting on what's been done before, mentioning characters from other universes. Just, what the fuck is this movie? Like, I don't understand. This is far too broken for me to give above a 2 out of 10. This is a 1 out of 10, you guys. This is shit. Actual shit in the making. I don't think I've given a review a 1 out of 10 yet. I struggle to think. Maybe you can prove me wrong in the comments and link me or say what video it is. But I don't think I've given a 1 out of 10 before, but here I am. This is a 1 out of 10. This is just broken, poorly written, poorly established within its world. Just everything is just so terrible. The characters are just bare-boned. Just nothing. Nothing in this movie works. I don't know where I can give credit. I don't know. This movie is so broken. It is so broken. And I'm not sure if anyone has said this movie is good yet. I haven't seen any other reviews, so. But man, this is just a 1 out of 10. And that's my review of Eternals. And if you ended up enjoying the review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. One will head you over to my Discord server, the other to my Patreon page. Any donations are greatly appreciated. Until next time, everyone. Bye-bye.